Hello and welcome to this week's edition of ELCAT News. I'm your host, Jen Carlos. At Tuesday's council meeting, several important items were taken up on the agenda. At the outset of the meeting, Councillor Tom O'Connor moved that reorganization of the council be moved ahead to the first order of business.
Yes, I move that we take agenda item 8C under new business out of order and place next on council business. 8C is under new business, reorganization of town council officers per Article 2, Section 3 of the Charter.
Seconded.
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Who wants to kick us off?
Oh, I
Just
nominate
let him know.
Kathy Hill as president of the council.
Do you have a second? Do we?
Do we need a second on
I'll
that?
second it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody else interested?
I'm interested in vice.
I'll nominate Michael Kane as vice president of the council for one more year.
I'll second that.
It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
During her report to the council, Town Manager Denise Menard highlighted an upcoming Family Day for veterans being planned for September 9th at Heritage Park.
You'll see on the dates to remember that September 9th, East Long Meadow will be hosting a Military Family Appreciation Day. And you'll see the name morph because I've seen it Military Family Day, Family Appreciation Day. It started because I was asking questions of our veterans agent about his outreach to our veterans here in East Long Meadow. The group, Rick Green is the chairman of the group that organizes the veterans agents, different towns that he represents, said, maybe we can do something. I said, that's great. I had Brian Doe come and see me. He's from Springfield Vet Center, I think, and he knew of somebody else, and it has grown into something that will be a picnic kind of event. Big Y is donating all the food. The disabled veterans van is going to be there. The Veterans Center bus that you saw in the parade is going to be there. I've spoken with the Lions, and they're going to bring their iMobile, and we expect to have a lot of information for the veterans to be able to really do more than what we're doing now. And it will be a family day. I talked to the rec department about a bounce house or something. It'll be at Heritage Park. So it's something to look forward to, and I'm hoping that this will be the kickoff of a first year of something that we have more than 1 year.
Town Human Resources Director Karen Decker reviewed a study prepared over the past year by the Collins Center for Public Management at the University of Massachusetts.
So in September and October of 2017, the new job descriptions did come, and I think everybody had seen them and was good with them. We only had a few that we had to make some corrections to. And then in March this year, we received the final report from Mariac Party, which included all her recommendations of what we needed to do to get everybody equal and have all of the job descriptions updated and the salary and wages consistent throughout the non-union employees and the East Long Meadow Town Employees Union.
The study was completed through a community compact grant from the Commonwealth and provides a basis for comprehensive realignment of employee compensation at all levels of town government.
I will say that this process here, it seems like a long time. This is the third one that I have done, salary and compensation study, and this is probably the only one that's been done in about a year. Usually it takes 1.5 years to 2 years for these things to go. So the Collins Center worked really hard along with Denise, myself, and Sarah and the department heads to get this accomplished.
The council then took up the status of the effort over the past several months to merge emergency dispatch services for East Long Meadow with the town of Hampden through an intermunicipal agreement.
8B, old business, discussion of combined dispatch. Mr. Manley, you asked to have this put on the agenda yesterday?
There was supposed to be a discussion about it wasn't put on yesterday, it was put on prior to that because there was some confusion about when we left executive session, whether the direction was to not continue or to continue. So apparently, some of us thought that the poll indicated that we were not gonna continue with that, 6-1.
Yep.
Other people don't feel that way, so it's up for discussion.
We will have the entire discussion of combined dispatch from Tuesday's meeting following the rest of the news. The rest of Tuesday's meeting was devoted to a presentation by Fred Sivian from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection regarding the impact of the new stormwater regulations on the town.
The new MS4 permit started on July 1st, 2018. It's now in effect. And what I wanted to do was to basically do two things. Explain to you where this permit came from, answer any questions that you have about the permit, and then help walk you through a summary of the major requirements of the permit. When we at state DEP and federal EPA look at rivers and streams and do sampling and all, we find that most rivers and streams, including here in Massachusetts, have too many pollutants in them to meet federal and state standards for water quality. They're not swimmable or fishable. And when we look at what the sources of those pollutants are, surprisingly, it's not mostly the wastewater and industrial facilities. It's stormwater, something that we all deal with. We've got stormwater running down our sidewalks, running into our streets and all. So as a society, we're all contributing pollutants to local rivers and streams.
The East Longmeadow DPW will be conducting public outreach in the coming weeks to help residents understand the impact and sources of stormwater pollution in local streams, ponds, and rivers, as well as the costs of mitigating that impact.
The other thing that's important to realize, and this people may not know this, is that stormwater systems don't have any treatment in them. Unlike a sewage system, anything that goes into a stormwater system goes directly into rivers and streams. My friend Joe Flanagan was popping catch basins near where my house is, pretty close to the Charles River, popped the tops of the catch basins and found a whole bunch of blue dog waste bags in there. Now, it wasn't that people were trying to pollute the Charles River. Lord knows we had enough of that going on. But they knew that there's a sewer system there, and they think sewage has treatment, and so maybe it's the right place to be able to put the bags. So one of the requirements in the permit is for there to be some pretty intensive public education to residents, to industries, to commercial facilities, and the like, to be able to explain what stormwater pollution is, where it comes from, and what we as a town and individuals can do about it.
On Tuesday, July 17th, the Planning Board will take up the continuation of two public hearings for the Hidden Pond subdivision on Redstone Drive and the proposed self-storage facility at the end of Baldwin Street. Also on the agenda is a preliminary subdivision proposal by builder Michael Carabetta for property on Maple Street and a change of space request for the Center Village Plaza, where Chipotle Mexican Grill plans to open next to the Mattress Firm. That's Tuesday, July 17th, and that Planning Board meeting will be held at the Council on Aging at 6 p.m. Now here's a look at the library this week. On Monday, July 16th from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. is a Makerspace workshop, which features 3D design, printing, and robotics. This event is for ages 7 and up. Registration is required. On Tuesday, July 17th from 12:30 p.m. to 2 p.m. is Cafe Concerts, Michael Franti and Spearhead. Take a lunch break at the library and enjoy a show on the big screen. Light refreshments will be served, sponsored by the Friends. Also on Tuesday, July 17th from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. is Yoga with Heather Munson. This event is for ages 7 to 11. Join Heather Munson and learn about yoga and mindfulness. Registration is required, sponsored by the Friends. On Wednesday, July 18th from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. is My Gym. Preschoolers are invited for fitness fun, including songs and dances, basic gymnastics, and an obstacle course, courtesy of the Meadow Masons. And finally, on Thursday, July 19th from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. is an open mic night. All types of performances are welcome, and performers must be ages 13 and up. Registration required for performers only. Finally, the full discussion of the combined dispatch issue from Tuesday's council meeting. The full meeting is available on the ELCAT channel 192 and on our YouTube channel, ELCAT 01028. The dispatch discussion runs just over 28 minutes. For ELCAT News, I'm Jen Carlos.
8B, old business, discussion of combined dispatch. Mr. Manley, you asked to have this put on the agenda yesterday?
There was supposed to be discussion about it wasn't put on yesterday, it was put on prior to that because there was some confusion about when we left executive session, whether the direction was to not continue or to continue. So apparently some of us thought that the poll indicated that we were not going to continue with that, 6-1.
Yep.
Other people don't feel that way, so it's up for discussion.
Well, just a clarification that there was no voting that happened?
Right, I just said the poll,
Yeah, good,
the consensus.
right.
Should we talk now or go back in executive session with it? Do you care?
Honestly, I don't think there's anything that needs to be discussed in executive session. I mean, I'm completely comfortable discussing it here now. And we're not talking about contractual obligations or anything like
Or
that, so I
negotiating
think we should stay in
tactics.
open.
It should be open.
As long as, exactly, as long as we stay away from the verbiage of the potential agreement itself, we're not, I don't believe we're violating anything by having a generic discussion in open session. But to tag along to Joe and Kevin's remarks, we entered into a sort of a straw poll, and as Mr. Manley has said, that it is not legal in an executive session for any body to conduct a vote. Any formal vote has to be conducted in open session. And thinking back to when the council had the opportunity to take part in a different dispatch organization back in the summer and fall, through Chicopee was kind of hosting a collaboration of that. We did, as a council, have an opportunity to look at a contract and to get a written opinion from Mr. Donahue, our counsel, as well as we did on November 28th take a formal vote to give direction to the town manager to withdraw from that collaboration. That said, since there is a misunderstanding among the council about where we stood consensus or not consensus-wise after the last meeting, I would like to, since we don't have an actual contract before us or any written report from our new counsel, Mr. Maynard, and I believe, well, I can't disclose that because that was said in executive session, but until we can see minutes of what may have gone on, I'd like to propose a subcommittee to work together, taking advice from Denise as well as any of our department heads that have played into it prior in the run-up to this arrangement. So, and I would task them with meeting ASAP and trying to get a very clear direction on where this council wants to go. To instruct our manager to continue to participate or instruct her to respectfully step away from the dispatch proposal.
Madam President. So as far as contract review, and maybe if you wouldn't mind kind of weighing in this, so I don't believe it's within our purview to necessarily review a contract, but maybe a summary of the contract, a highlight, an understanding, so that we can advise, because we're not going to approve a contract, that's beyond our
Correct.
scope.
If I said review a contract,
Yeah.
I didn't mean that. I
Okay.
meant review the circumstances, I should say that. Review the information in front of us and take advice from council and our manager.
Yeah,
Well,
sorry,
if you're
go
looking
ahead.
for me to weigh in at all, I guess my sense was that there was a clear consensus coming out of the last executive session that, I mean, my review of the charter indicates that it's the town manager's decision ultimately whether to enter into the contract that was being discussed. Again, my view was that the consensus was clear and the directions to me as council were clear. If there's some rethinking of that to be had, so be it, and I'll wait for further instruction.
Yeah, I'll speak for myself, I don't want to speak for anyone else. You know, I think this is a good lesson learned. We haven't gone to executive session many times. Like, I don't know, that's probably the first time we did that in 6 months, 8 months. I mean, it hasn't been very
We've probably
often.
done executive session 4 or 5 times in this last fiscal
Yeah.
year.
So it hasn't been
At
very
the
often.
most.
And I think, for me, what I would like, the way I consume information is, you know, I need something beforehand to process. So as we're discussing with multiple department heads their opinions about their position on something, I'm using that information, but it's really the first time I'm hearing it. So I think as we go into this, looking back on it, I think we probably could have handled that a little better, because we could have had some information up front, had questions prepared, asked things, and maybe thought through it a little bit better, because we walked away, I read the executive minutes, I think that they were spot on as far as I'm concerned, but we're not even approving them today, So I just think in the future, I'd like some sense of why we're going into executive session, some key bullet points, the summary, overview. I don't need to be a contract expert because I'm not approving a contract. I'm trying to give opinions and direction, but I need information so that I can process and then repeat. So I think, we probably botched that a little bit and rushed. We might come to the same conclusion. I don't know. So it sounds like maybe there's an opportunity to just look once more, think through it, process information, and then make a decision in open session and move on.
Well, there was obviously a meeting yesterday, so why don't they tell us what happened at that meeting? There was a meeting with the Board of Selectmen in Hampton yesterday, so what was the content of that meeting?
I was invited to that meeting, but I was not allowed into the session. We waited 15 minutes, and there were 3 councilmen in
I
there.
would take your recommendation and move the subcommittee.
I'm asking what the content of the meeting was. What was the content of yesterday's
I
meeting?
don't think, at this point now, that's gonna verge onto matter that needs to stay in executive session.
So there was an executive session discussion yesterday with members of the council to talk about a contract that's the town manager's purview to do under the charter. So we violated the charter by meeting with the Board of Selectmen to discuss a contract?
Mr. Manley, my understanding was that you and Ms. Menard were both invited to that meeting.
We were. We
And
waited
you
for-
accepted at 4:30 in the afternoon to be there.
No, I accepted the week
Okay.
before.
Well,
think
so
this is
let's
a
not
subject for
belabor the point,
executive.
because
This is not.
I would go
Moving on.
back
This
to
is
what
not.
Mr. Ford said. I'd be the first to say it. I think we got ahead of ourselves. There was a misstep during executive session on June 26th. We should never have run with the idea of a straw poll, because you can't take those, and we did. The good
Yes, you
news
can.
is, it's not irreparable. We didn't enter into any agreements. We haven't spent money.
Were there any agreements last night with Hampton?
There were
I
no,
don't think there could be.
there can't
How
be.
is there
There can't be,
agreement?
because the board has,
We can't enter into agreements
Besides the fact
until,
that the meeting was not
To be-
properly noticed to begin with.
and to be bluntly honest, some people on the board didn't even know about the meeting,
Right.
so. I found out from a Hampton selectman.
Yeah, and listen, I've had the opportunity to talk to a few of you, and these are teachable moments, I mean, we think we're all moving in the right direction to do what's in the best interest of the town, but sometimes we need to take pause, and I'm one that sometimes needs a reminder to take pause and not be so quick to react. I mean, we need to process information. I mean, I'm in Paul's, neck of the woods. I didn't know there was an option to go to a meeting. So, it just seems like two different fractions are not communicating. And at the end of the day, I think it made the situation worse temporarily. Now we have to work even harder to fix it and, kind of get to a point where Denise is processing information, she's providing us information, and we can make a decision and put this to bed, so that we don't keep making missteps and ultimately, if it's a good business decision, great. If it's not, we move on, we have a plan B, we're ready to execute a plan B.
right, the core of the matter is this dispatch proposal a good business decision for the citizens of East Long Meadow, and nothing else?
And that's
There's
understood.
a lot more to it.
Well,
There's
listen,
a lot more to it.
and there may be, and I'm not privy to any of that, I would just say in the future, if a situation like that ever arises, that we need communication to the full council, and that, I think if I was aware that that meeting was supposed to happen, I would have said, don't go. That would have been my recommendation. We don't need to acquiesce to anything that they're doing at this point. We weren't ready to make a decision to, like, who was even representing us at that meeting.
So let me clarify that meeting. I received notice 2 days after the last council meeting that there was going to be an executive session and that I was going to be invited. As the person doing the contract, that would be appropriate for me to go and speak to my counterparts who are the authorities to sign a contract. I said that tentatively I would agree. That was 2 days after the last council meeting. Tentatively, I will agree. I spoke to the president of the council because you can't have everybody there. First, it was executive session, and secondly, you know, you can't have a whole quorum in there. So I thought it's...
Just to touch on that, the chiefs were not available.
And the chiefs were not available. One is on vacation, and the other was not available. So I, in safety, wanted somebody in the room with me, but you can't, so I invite the president. That's going to be makes no difference who the president is, whether it's Kevin or Kathy or Paul or Tom. I felt that it was probably less appropriate to have Mike because Mike is an employee of Hamden. So that's why I did not include Mike. And the rest of the council, I can't pick and choose. That would be up to Paul up to the president to say if there's somebody else that he thinks should come along. But we needed to be careful that we didn't have a quorum. We got there at 5 of 6 last night, and the meeting was already going on. And we waited 15 minutes in the hallway. And I was told by the recording secretary, not once, but twice, to stand back.
I find those facts to be inaccurate.
Well, they're not.
Well, that's your
They're not.
opinion.
And that's your
That's
opinion.
your opinion.
Gentlemen.
That's your opinion.
All right.
You shouldn't even be involved in it. You should have been recused a long time ago.
Kevin,
You should be out.
so that said, are there any other counselors that want to express any information?
Well, I have to agree with our town council in the sense that, you know, when we created the charter, because we have people watching on TV, just understand, we took the place, the council, took the place of town meeting. We also incorporated certain limited functions of the Board of Selectmen into our job description, including liquor licenses and so forth. So we're the purse, money side. The negotiations of our strong town manager position is the town manager. The town manager, in effect, whether we like it or not, that's the charter. That's the law of our local land, is the one who negotiates the contract. Our strength is with the purse strings. If she puts a contract together and we go, we don't think so, we don't fund it. And that's where our control is. So the matter from that last meeting was, the way it started off was, let's see if we can add a couple weeks of discussion. Then we heard concerns from our police and fire and so forth, and the word coming back that some of the original discussion, I'm trying to be very cryptic, was not the way it is in the present. So the way I understood this, it was very clear in the minutes of the town meeting, I mean in the minutes of the executive session, was this is a non-binding, it's just getting a pulse for what we would like. That was it. My thought was, you know what, if the terms are being changed, if that's the way they're coming in, then at the moment, we're done with them, let them come back and say, come back to us with something. And that's what I was voting on. I wasn't voting on the onset, and again, I'm using the word vote in a very loose way, because we did not engage in any vote. It was just Kevin, what's your feel? What are you guys thinking? And that's it. And we were very clear, we are not voting in executive session. And my feeling was, you know what, this was the deal, the deal is being modified, I'm done with it, let them come back with a new proposal. But this stringing of, and constantly following along where this was the term, now this is the term, that's what I was voting. So I just want to be very clear. straw polling on there, okay. I'm not saying we should never have a deal with him. I'm just saying the deal has to be, I mean, our job, as Joe pointed out, and we all know, is to represent the people of East Long Meadow who elected us. You know what? And that is it. And if the deal becomes anything less than that, forget about it. It has to be strictly, that's our fiduciary duty, is to represent the people of East Long Meadow. And if we engage in a discussion, and that discussion, the other side says, well, that's the deal, but now we're changing the deal, I don't have a place for that kind of stuff. I'd rather have it square and good faith from I'm not suggesting any bad faith, I'm saying external factors, you know, reconsidering it, fine. Etch a sketch, start over, let's get something, and then you come to us and tell us something that's fair, and we work off what's in it for East Long Meadow, point of view.
So I know
It
there's,
seems like, you know, and I was of the same mindset, right? Because essentially we're entering into a marriage, and a very complicated one. An intermunicipal agreement is no joke. So you have to be comfortable with what you're entering into. So now, having said that, since our last meeting, something changed. But the full board wasn't made aware of the change. So we just should not have reacted and rushed out. And that's where I think the miscommunication between different people trying to accomplish the same thing ends up being in a, okay, now here we are today. So, you know, and I think, just so we're clear for everybody, including myself, like, we're not gonna look over the contract. That's what your job is. I think, you know, maybe what, you know, makes sense is to take one more look, make sure we're doing our due diligence, and then, you know, you keep on going, give us a summary of that. If you think a subcommittee is in the best interest, then absolutely, we'll do that, and then we can make a recommendation to the full board and put this thing to bed.
well, what, I'm concerned as to what a subcommittee, if they're not going to be looking at a contract, so what exactly is the purpose of the subcommittee that we wouldn't bring to the full council and have a discussion in open session with the full council, with the attorney, that I bring a recommendation, that we bring to the full council?
And you know, maybe that's fair in this situation, but we definitely need information earlier
I
to process, because there's still a lot of data to look at, and, you know, that's where we were having that conversation, and there's 5 department heads, and we're volleying stuff back and forth, and it was, you know, in hindsight, it was unproductive, right? It was opinion-based, and then we're reacting like I had the same reaction to him. I don't negotiate like that. I don't work like that. So I had the same reaction that Don did. So I thought I was being pretty clear as well. Like, wow, just there's nothing to talk about. Move on. Let's go and execute our plan now. So that's all I ask. That's all I need, I guess, is some, you know, give me 48 hours, give me information a couple days before. So I don't know, it's up to you guys. I mean, I guess we can not do I guess I'm gonna shut up and talking too much, but we don't need a subcommittee necessarily?
If we do have a subcommittee, _10 times, it has to have clear marching orders.
Yes.
That the subcommittee's focus is within our purview, within the charter of what our responsibility is. And that's the key. It cannot be into stepping into there. Just like, for instance, I chair the Planning Matters Subcommittee. And we're very clear, we're not a planning board. We focus strictly on matters within the scope as it appears before the town council, and not stepping into the job of the planning board. So I think what we need is clear definition before we create the subcommittee of what it's all about, and to make sure that we're not crossing into the executive branch of our government, that we keep the focus on our powerful legislative branch that we are. And I think that I would support. But if the definition isn't clear on what we're accomplishing, then I think we need to say, time out, let's get it into the next agenda, let's have clear definitions, bounce it through town council to make sure we're not, like I said, not becoming a planning board. I'm not crossing into their turf. We're focusing on what we need. That's just my take.
But to Denise's point, in this particular case, what can a subcommittee do? If we can't negotiate figures or a contract, what are they gonna do?
That's,
You know, they're gonna go in and
This
they're.
is what I would envision the subcommittee being able to do. Unlike when we had the opportunity to visit the Chicopee proposal back in the fall, we had before us, and if you go back and go through your pile of agendas, the proposed contract, a written opinion from Jim Donahue, and then we took a vote in open session. We have not had the benefit of looking at a proposed contract. I would agree with, I think Joe said, we only have opinions from department heads, and in 2 of those cases, they're subjective. We don't have tangible data in front of us. I would charge a subcommittee with meeting with Mr. Maynard and Denise, and using the department heads, the chiefs, and Sarah and Ryan from IT, as they felt necessary, to receive the pros and cons from their perspective. So I would ask our council to give us the pros of that document and the negatives of it, the proposed contract. We are not, other than present company here excluded, we're not lawyers, and it is not our job to micromanage a language in a contract. But I want more information than what we got 2 weeks ago.
Madam President, just a point of clarification. I'm happy to meet with any subcommittee that's
And I don't see this
formed.
as a prolonged situation either.
But as far as I know, there is no proposed contract at this point. There was some negotiation back and forth, but there was never any kind of consensus from one side or the other as to what the contract being proposed was.
Did you not meet with, and I don't remember the woman's name from Hamden
I
who...
did, Rose Crowley. I did meet with her, and we went back and forth so that I could understand what her proposals were, and told her I'd bring that back to the council and
And there's
talk
no
about it.
document that you are going back and forth on?
There is a document,
So
but there's
isn't-
there's no agreement on the terms.
Well, I understand that, but we would look to you to say, this is the document that Ms. Crowley and I are working on.
Sure.
And this is my best legal opinion.
Sure, happy to do that.
To say, here's the good points, here's the not so good points. And if you're asking me for my recommendation, which the subcommittee is going to ask, this is what I would do.
Sure.
And the same with our town manager and our chiefs. And then the committee can come back to us, make a recommendation, and if we need then, if your recommendation is to use an executive session to hammer out the fine points, then we do that. But to the extent that we don't violate the spirit of an executive session or an IMA, the intermunicipal agreement, do that in open session and then give the manager direction.
That's fine. It sounds as if you're doing what Mr. Ford has proposed, and that is backing up to a point before the last council
Correct.
meeting and
Yes.
and getting to where I thought we were going to get at that last meeting.
Yeah.
So to put in writing recommendations, which,
I would
why do
agree,
you need a
and
subcommittee to do that when we can do that?
Yeah, so I'm thinking, if you're gonna give the subcommittee recommendations and the subcommittee's gonna give us the recommendations, why don't you just give us the recommendations?
And then we
And skip the
discuss it in
middle layer of
open
bureaucracy.
session.
I'm happy to
Can
do.
we do that in open session, or should that go back to executive?
I believe you can do that in open session. I don't think that involves the negotiation strategy to the detriment of the town to discuss the pros and cons of entering into a
Right.
contract.
Yeah, if you give us your opinion on, nothing financial, no specific terms, but say, I think this contract is a good idea for the town, or I don't think this contract
Well,
is a good
there
idea
are,
for the town.
there, inherent in the agreement will be financial language.
But he can give us an overview,
Right.
you know, because he can't give the subcommittee an overview, because they can't do anything with it, because we can't do anything financial anyways. So,
No, but the purpose of a subcommittee is to do the homework and come back, to the body and say, this is what we have gathered based on legal opinion, and this is what we recommend, just like we've done with other
But
subcommittees.
that's what his job is and her job
Yeah.
is, so why can't they just do it here?
exactly.
Why can't, here's another thought. Instead of a subcommittee, why don't we just have our council president be able to interact with them, you know, as opposed to creating it under the purview of us, but as opposed to being our representative, coming in to interact, doing some fact-finding, and then after the fact-finding, determine whether that information should be shared in the general meeting or go into executive session to discuss it.
And pretty basically,
That way
that's-
we're not
that's what we've done with
stepping
Cody
in.
so
And we don't
far.
have to,
So that seems like a, president of council is always
yeah.
a lot more aware of the day-to-day than I bring to the whole council.
Yeah, that
So
would be a
that's,
good
Kathy, would you be comfortable with that?
You would still be soliciting department heads
I would
Yes.
and
think that.
whoever
Right.
to get the
Absolutely.
pertinent
Yes,
information.
yes.
But it doesn't
So
create a
what's-
false sense of, like, we have control. Everything's still within the charter.
I look at the subcommittee as an
I think
organized
that-
meeting
Yeah,
of
put
the
it down
talents
too.
that are
Put it down too.
participating and would be attending those meetings to,
But they seem to already
Offering
have a
information and all.
subcommittee
We have- we have-
them, and we're just having our presence in that committee already. And that keeps it consistent with the charter, and we have a representative, the president of our council.
I'm good.
Do we, yeah, is that something we have to vote on? Or no, just?
Do we need
You're
to
the
vote on
boss, you
this?
can, you
or-
can name yourself.
I can't.
I mean, I think it's just basically a show of support if we just
Yeah.
take a motion to do it as opposed to a directive. I mean, I would make a motion that our council president represent the council to fact-find and gain information from this already existing committee, and because we do have an interest, albeit not an interest encroaching on their power, but an interest nonetheless, and that, I think, gives a clear message, and it keeps it within the consistency of the consistent with the charter. So I'll make that motion.
So move.
There's a motion on the floor to,
To give you more work.
to
Yeah.
ask the council president to meet with town council and town manager and any relevant department heads to get a more descriptive opinion of the IMA, and to then, I'm gonna think we can get this done so that on August 14th, the council can give direction or not.
that's been our goal. all
Right.
along.
Any other discussion?
It hasn't been seconded yet.
No, I made the motion,
It was
you
seconded.
seconded it.
No, I moved it. but that's-
Okay, you moved it, okay. So, somebody else, I'll second the motion then.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.